Hi, I'm Ken. This weekend I went to a stamp show and bought these two stamp lots. One is in a bin right here. The other is in a bin right here, both from the same dealer. Inside of these lots, I'll just show you some preliminary things about what's in here. I've got a lot of things like this packet right here. This is a whole bunch of stamps from Malawi. Each one is listed as pretty minimum stamp value, $3, $2, $4, things like that. We'll go into some more detail of this in a second. There's also a big chunk here of Iranian stamps, 75 cents, 75-cent lots, some 50-cent lots, etc. Lots of interesting things here. I also have in this lot some treasures, and I'll just show you a few of those as we go. But we'll dive into these a little more a little later. Here's a nice unused German Reich 5 mark stamp. What else do we have here? We have some French stamps with advertising labels on them. What else? Here's a Marshall Islands large yacht stamp. There are some stamps here from Northwest Pacific Islands. Those are fun. Anyway, some nice stamps in here, and a lot of things that are kind of don't want to call them junk because they're delightful stamps, but they're low value stamps. It seems that every time I go to a stamp show, I come home with something like one of these boxes with treasures in it. And so I've done some thinking about my process and how this seems to happen to me. At first it felt like I was just getting lucky, but I think I'm doing some things that increase my chances of finding something great in lots like this. So what I wanted to do was share the process that I use to go through at a stamp show and increase my odds of finding some real treasures in what I find in the stamp show. So we're going to share that with you in a second. As it turns out, though, I have a couple of thank yous to give, and I want to do that before we dive into these boxes. First of all, as my audience itself, you guys are a treasure. I simply love it when you send me stamps like these stamps that Ted from New Jersey sent. I'll share those in just a second. I'm very grateful for when somebody sends me stamps. But I'm equally grateful for all of you leaving comments of encouragement on the channel. So that's just a delight to me as well. Anyway, I did want to send a special thank you to Ted for sending this packet along. Inside of this packet are a lot of great things. Ted sent some lovely stamps from the Philippines, and in here are also some French stamps overprinted RF. Those are a fun thing to look up. Another packet of Philippines. Here's a lovely set, a really nice set of Wartax stamps. Ted was aware that I'm working on my World War I album, and these Wartax stamps were a part of the philatelic history of that time period, and here's just a whole bunch of them. I just love that these are here, so I'm going to have fun with those. There are a lot of other things in this packet. On the back, I just love this, are some, well, here's a nice, what is this? This is Scotland, a nice souvenir sheet from Scotland, some other stamp lots, but I kind of love these stamps from Guernsey, which are Magic Eye hidden image stamps. So I think those are fun too. Anyway, Ted has sent along a lovely collection of things. Thank you, Ted, for sending these along. I think this is great. So now let's dive into the treasures that I found in these boxes. The first step in my process is walking around the stamp show and looking for dealers who are selling lots, and there seem to be two types of this. First, there's some dealers who have tables full of lots, and those dealers are pretty good at putting together lots and pricing them. I have found deals looking in those kinds of lots, and they're not uncommon, but there's a second type of dealer who has lots that I find a more likely source of treasures. And that second type of dealers are usually selling high-value singles on their table somehow, and they have a few lots sitting off to the side. That's not their main order of business. I find those lots to be the ones that are more likely to have treasures inside of them. And in fact, this lot, the two lots I'm going to look at today, come from lots like that. I have done some similar searching on eBay for keywords like lot or collection or album. Think about for a moment what these lots like this, where a dealer is trying to sell other things and they've put together these lots. Think for a moment about what those lots represent while we look at some of the stamps in this one. So let's just start to take a look at what's in this lot. I'm just going to start at the beginning here. I've got some postage due. At the front here, I've got some, what is this? This is, I can't even see the country, Kelatan. Some stamps from Kelatan here. I just want to make sure that this is focusing fine. Yeah, it is. I've got some German stamps in here, some more German stamps. Here's a little set from Austria. That's nice. Here's some stamps on paper from Rwanda, Burundi. Some other stamps on the back of that. Here's a set from Cabo Verde. You can see the kinds of things that are in here. I just kind of poked through these and find some interesting little stamps. Here's a set from Nigeria, a big full packet of Nigerian stamps. Looks like somebody put that together to sell as a small lot. Here are some stamps from more Cabo Verde. Oftentimes in lots like this you find groupings of stamps all from the same place, like the dealer had a pile of them. They thought they were going to sell as a unit and couldn't really figure out how to sell them as a unit, and so they threw them into a lot like this. What else have we have here? Let's keep going. Here's some French stamps, some older French stamps from overprinted Acors, which is from the Azore Islands. Interesting stamps. One of the things that jumps out at a lot like this for me is that these are from the time period I tend to collect. Most of these stamps are older stamps, and I tend to collect stamps from before like 1970. Although here's some example. Here's some stamps from China. China, yeah, these are from China from later. These are from 1980. Here's some Malaysian stamps, a nice thick packet of Malaysian stamps. Let's keep going here, through here. Sweden, Israel. You can see there's just a ton of stamps from different places, all different time periods, all different levels of country and quality of stamps. So we keep paging through here and see what else jumps out at us. Here's a nice set from Brazil. I collect definitives, so when I see a lot like this, these are right up my alley of the kind of things I might be interested in. We'll keep looking here. Some Lincoln stamps from Colombia. Notice that this says broken line variety on 60. Puts a selling price at the top here of $15. Now, I don't know, and I don't want you to think that when you go through a lot that you can trust what's written on these cards. Oftentimes, people have taken stamps and put it into a card randomly and haven't yet labeled it correctly. So maybe that is a broken line variety for $15. Maybe it's not. I have to look that up. So Israel, what else have we got here? Keep going. Some Hong Kong stamps mixed in with some India stamps. Here's some more. Here's a random packet of stamps I can see in there. Scotland, I can see in there. Norway, I can see in there. Egypt. So interesting things here. So you can see the kinds of things that are in this lot. There's a big packet of Wildings from, well, they disappeared in there. But anyway, there's a big pile of Wildings in there. So those are the kinds of things that are in a lot like this. And there's a lot in this. This lot was labeled for $20. I negotiated a slightly better deal. The two lots were labeled 90 and 20. So what is that? Actually, 90 and 50. This lot was $50. Between them, 90 and 50 is $140. I paid $120 for the lot. So, not a huge discount, but a little bit of a discount. I keep looking through here. So these are decent stamps. I'm happy with what I got in this lot. But so far, I'm not seeing anything particularly stand-outish as I look through this. Although, I admit, I have already picked through this lot to find stamps. Here's some things from Turks and Caicos. Already picked through this to find some of the treasures I wanted to pull out and talk to you about. Here's a section of stamps on a card. I have to pick through those a little bit to see what's in them. Here's some German stamps on a card. What else have we got here before we move on to the end? Here's a big section of Australian stamps. Just a real hodgepodge of things. Here's a ton of Machins and Wildings. I will have fun going through that. A hint for all of you, as I look through Wildings in particular, I often flip over the stamps to see if there are any of the graphic line varieties. That'll tell me that this is a nicer packet here. What else do I want to show? So you can just see what's going on here. Now, in this section, there's a whole chunk of cards. Cards with a few stamps on them. This is listed as Kiribati, 95 cents. Here's another Kiribati, 20 cents. Kiribati, $1.25. So you see a pattern here. Nothing particularly good. And since I don't collect Kiribati as a rule, not as a rule, I generally don't collect Kiribati, and I don't collect commemorative stamps. As I look in a lot like this, if this lot were all full of stamps like this, I would tend to ignore the lot. So Kiribati space, this is not the kind of thing I typically collect. But if we keep going forward, you'll see some Austrian stamps. I do collect Austrian stamps, and here's a nice little set of Austrian regular issues, large denominations in a card. That's a nice little find in here. But again, not very highly valued stamps. 60 cents on this one, $1.25 here. As I think about a lot like this, I look to spend on the order of 10% of my estimation of the value of a stamp. And mostly that turns out to be pretty close to true. But you'll see here's some beautiful animals on Austrian stamps. This set is listed as $2.15. So nice little set. Anyway, you can see all these stamps on individual cards. And in the back, you'll see the stamp. I'll pull out the stamp that caught my attention for this lot. This lot is a set of Machins. You know that I've been having a lot of fun with Machins recently. And in this set in particular, let's make sure I can get this on the camera. In this set in particular, you'll see this stamp right here, and I don't know if you can see it here too. There's a star on the back of this. This star is something that the Machin, the British Royal Post put on the back of some stamps that were discounted for Christmas. The star was a way so that if somebody bought the stamp at a discount, they for their Christmas cards, they wouldn't turn it in later for a profit. So the star stopped it being returned as a profit. Now, this is a used stamp here. Let's see if we can pull it out. This is a used stamp, yep. And that used stamp with a star on the back is kind of unusual because what typically happens when these get soaked off is the star is on top of the gum, and so the star gets washed away when you soak it off the paper. So you can see in this stamp right here, let's see if we can get this up and closer. This stamp has a star too, but that star is almost completely washed away. So anyway, this caught my eye as something I really wanted to get a copy of. Used copies of these Machins with the star on the back. So I'm thrilled to get that. This is what originally drew me to this box and said it might be worth taking a deeper look at. So I'm going to put this back here, and I will show you some other treasures that I eventually found in this box that drew my attention. And in particular, these three packets drew my attention. This one is some very early stamps from Newfoundland. So this is a Canadian state before, essentially a country that was now a Canadian state, but was at the time its own Commonwealth country. Is that right? Anyway, every time I do this, I get it wrong, and somebody corrects me in the in the comments, and that's fine. These are from Newfoundland. I know I didn't have this particular Newfoundland stamp, and so that stood out to me. I also love the design on this orange stamp. Let me just pull that out because it's kind of fun. Just a lovely little stamp. And so when I see a stamp that that I find pretty attractive from a country that I'm really interested in, like Newfoundland, that is another thing I look up as a potential treasure within this lot. Here's another full set of Newfoundland stamps that I saw in this lot. Some older, some newer, but you can also see that this stamp right here is not from Newfoundland, although most of the other things in this packet are. This one is from Palau. And so what you start to see again is a collection of stamps where the stamp dealer has put them in this box because they just haven't taken the time yet or had the patience to process what they have in these boxes. So this is essentially a catch basin of things that aren't worth the energy individually to deal with, but that means that they haven't been researched very deeply, and that means, in some sense, there might be a treasure inside of this box, and that's what I'm looking for. Here's another one that jumped out at me. This jumped out at me because this 50-cent stamp from Canada is an unused stamp, and an unused stamp at a higher denomination in Canada can indeed be a treasure. So I found this in this little box. So anyway, let's talk about these boxes a little bit, and just about this box in particular, and talk about how I start the process of looking for treasure. And that first step comes from looking through a box like I just did, looking for what stamps catch my eye. At a show, I look through each lot I come across, and they're just not a mystery. It's not a mystery box that I got. You can look at these boxes at the show and look through what's in them. Although the Spellman Museum does sell mystery boxes, which are complete sealed boxes, and the contents are a mystery, I have bought 2 boxes of those, and I can attest that what I found in there have been some incredible treasures. So I encourage you, if you are at the Spellman Museum, to buy those mystery boxes. They're just a lot of fun. Anyway, I look through a box or an album like this to try and find a few items that tell me that this lot is worth looking more carefully through. So I showed you a few of the interesting items that were in this box already. Usually I don't buy a box like this when I first see it. I have a budget when I go shopping for stamps. It's a money budget for sure, but it's equally a volume budget. I don't want to buy so many stamps from one stamp show that I haven't had a chance to parse them all before I go on to the next show. And so it's important for me to not overbuy, otherwise I'm not done with this packet before I move to the next show and buy my next set of packets. So for me, this is a hobby, an entertainment budget, and I'm looking for stamps that are interesting and feed that hobby for me, not just a hoard of stamps. Now, I do know there are lots of stamp collectors out there who are large hoarders, and if that's you, more power to you. Do the thing that makes you have fun with your stamp collection. For me, I like to be able to process these before I go. So anyway, instead of just buying lots, the first one I find that might be interesting, I go through all the different dealer tables in the show looking for which dealer has lots that might be interesting to me. And once I've gone through the whole show, I decide which 2 or 3 boxes, 2 or 3 albums, 2 or 3 whatever lots they are, might be the ones that I want to consider buying. And when I do that, I go back at the end of looking for them all, and I do a more thorough search of the lot. And I'm doing it to essentially confirm that it has enough things in it that I'm willing to pay for it. And if it doesn't, if it has less value in it than I am really interested in buying, I try and get some sense of what I'm interested in paying for it. For me, what I'm happy about paying for a lot is some combination of the value of the stamps inside. I think I said this earlier. I'm generally willing to pay about 10% of the catalog value of the stamps in the box. I haven't memorized the catalog, and so I can't be sure that I've got the catalog right, but I can get a sense that that a certain amount of stamps is worth about $1. And so when I take a chunk like this, I can guess that that's worth $1 or $2 of purchase price for me. But for me, I'm also interested in stamps that actually fit my collection. So for me, when I take a set of stamps like these from Kiribati, not things I collect, it may be that these are worth $1 in general to somebody, but to me, these are worth 0. So I count these as not having any value. The other thing I look for is there enough volume in this box to give me enough entertainment time out of the lot? Right? I'm going to spend a certain amount of time sitting around a table and enjoying searching through this stamp box. I'd like that money that I spend on it to be kind of equivalent to what I would spend for a similar amount of nights out at the movie, right? A movie might cost me 10 to 20 bucks. That's going to be 3 hours of entertainment. If this box is going to cost $50, I'm expecting and hoping that I'm going to get 2.5 to 3 movies worth of entertainment out of this. So can I spend 3 nights around my dining room table sorting through stamps for the box this size? Yes, I certainly can. If I found a box that had 10 stamps in it that I knew were each worth $10 to $15, and what is that, $150? Let's call that box $150, and someone was willing to sell me the box for 10% of that, $15, I still wouldn't buy that box because those 10 stamps are not, they don't have enough entertainment value in them of going through that box as a lot. So no treasure hunting in a box like that for me. The treasure hunting is both an entertainment time and looking for things that might stand out or be missed by the dealer who put this lot together. Now, they're not upset that they missed it, right? If they had to go through this same level of detail on a box like this that I will spend at my dining room table, they would never have enough time to do the main part of their business and put things together. So for them, throwing them in this box gets them the money that they want to get out of the box, at the same time not having spent a ton of time looking up the catalog value of all these little things in here and making sure that they get full value out of it. Anyway, that's what I do with a box like this. Now, when I'm doing my second pass, I'm looking in here for things that I want to set aside as unusual, right? And there's a couple of ways that I look for unusual stamps. First, I'm looking for older stamps. I look for stamps that are definitive stamps because I don't have particular interest in stamps that are commemorative stamps. It's just not what I collect. And I look for stamps that fit into countries that I have some care about. So for this set right here, this is stamps from Germany. I do collect Germany. These are pretty common stamps, and I need a few of them. So there's maybe some interest in this packet to me. This is older regular issues, and I will keep them and like them, but they are from, where did we say, Kelatan. I don't particularly collect Kelatan, and so this one is maybe not as important to me to count in my evaluation of a box like this. So I'm looking at this box. I have $50 in my head. I'm looking through each of the individual items and deciding, does this packet help me with making this worth that $50? These Cabo Verde stamps, overprints, are older in the right range, so I might kind of tick in my head that this adds $1 to the value of this box to me, so $1. Here's a bunch of stamps from Austria. Some overprints on the back. There's some older ones, and in particular, these two stamps are unused older stamps. Now, I know Austrian stamps are not notably aren't notably expensive, but for me, having an unused copy of those stamps, let's add another $1 to my pile. So, you know, $1, $2. Here's a whole bunch of Azor stamps, maybe another $1. We'll see about that. And with this other pack of Azor stamps, yeah, together those are worth $1. So what are we at? 3 now. So we just keep going through in that way, looking to see which stamps make this tally worth a little bit more in my head. Okay, so you'll see I'm just kind of poking through packet by packet. I do have some interest in these Malaysian stamps, even though they're more modern. These are pretty common stamps, although I'd throw another dollar of value into it for me on those. I keep going here. Pretty common German stamps of no particular interest to me there. Here's some Chinese stamps, and nothing that jumps out at me as having particular value. Well, you see the process, right? And I'll just keep going here until I find something that jumps out. I do love Wildings, so these add another dollar into my pile, into my calculus for the value of this set. So you see, I keep just going through this bit by bit, keeping a running tally in my head to make sure that this box is worth the $50 or $40 I'm willing to spend on it. So we just keep going. I'll do a few more examples of this just to give you a sense. Here's some old Luxembourg stamps. I think these add another dollar to my thought. Yep. Keep going. Here's a lot of stamps from Monaco. I have an interest in collecting some early Monaco. We'll throw another dollar on our head for that. Here's a lot of Finnish stamps. Another dollar for that in my head. Here's here's a little booklet. If I collected this kind of thing, these stamps from United Nations would add to the collection, but I don't collect United Nations stamps, and so even though this is a pretty nice booklet, it's of no particular value to me. Here's a pile of US stamps, and these are unused US stamps, and quite a lot of them actually, and it looks like there's some postage in here. Now, I have plenty of postage, so I might think of this as having fundamental value for me as a collector for sending out mail to people. I think about postage a little bit, but honestly, I have enough postage, so this is of no value to me. Here's an interesting stamp. This one is actually a tax stamp. I don't collect tax stamps, but I know that these can be reasonably valuable, so I might be able to trade that with someone else. So let's throw another dollar or two into our thinking there. We keep going. What else jumps out at me? Here's some more US postage. Well, you see the process. Now, I went through this whole lot, and like I said, a few things jumped out at me. And some more Wildings, some more German stamps. A few things jumped out at me. The Austrian stamps add a few dollars here, but I'm really only seeing $20 or so worth of value on this $50 lot until I picked out a few more special things to me. One of them was, like I said, these Machens and that star lot. Now, are those stamps worth more than $1? No, they are not. Those stamps are probably worth 10 cents, and I don't have a ton of them, but I really wanted that stamp. So to me, this stamp was worth $10 of value in this lot. I look then at a couple of other things that pop out. These particular Newfoundland stamps, those are where the value is. These are, potentially $5 to $10 stamps each, not in this set, but in this set. And this unused 50-cent stamp, well, that could be a real treasure. It turns out it's not that much of a treasure, but it's worth $10 or $20, that 50-cent stamp. Same thing with these stamps here. And so these stamps, plus that star, plus the possibility of finding other treasure in this box makes this box worth it for me as a potential treasure trove. This one was the $50 box, and when I decided that this was a pretty good deal for me at $40, I knew where I was going to negotiate it. It wasn't quite making the $50 range, which is why I offered $40. If this had been worth $100 to me, I wouldn't have haggled with the stamp dealer. I would have just paid the $50 he was asking for. But I was willing to buy this at $40. So there we go. Now let's do the same thing with this lot. Right? This lot was marked as a $90 lot. So I expected this to have not only more material, which it did, but that it would have some higher end material. And we'll take a look at that. So here's a stamp from Samoa, an overprint on a New Zealand stamp. I think overprints tend to be more valuable, and that's kind of a nice one. I like that. So nice find there. Some nice Kenyan stamps. We'll keep looking through here. Here's some overprints, French India. That's interesting to me. Here's a whole bunch of Iranian stamps. I like Iranian stamps. It's one of the areas I'm sure I'm going to collect in the future. Here's a nice set of butterfly stamps, and someone may love these things. These are from Papua New Guinea. I don't collect butterfly stamps. I don't tend to collect topical stamps. So while these are valuable, they're not valuable to me. They don't add much to this pile. So here's a whole bunch of Iranian stamps. Here's an older stamp, but it says it has a tear on it. And look, right here on this image, it says that its catalog value is $80. So I know that a stamp like this I could probably get for $8 without a tear. So while that's an interesting space filler, I probably could get that for $1 if I were to buy it in that condition. So not something I'm going to jump on in this collection. What else do we have here? So here's a nice, whenever you see stamps that are this old, straight settlement with Queen Victoria, those are potential nicer stamps, potential treasure. So we keep looking through this lot. I will stop when I see another interesting thing here. Some more Iranian stamps. A lot of Iranian stamps got counterfeited, although stamps this modern didn't get counterfeited. So I'm pretty confident that these are not counterfeits, although there are so many of them that it's quite possible I'm missing these from my Iranian collection. So I'm thrilled, because I do collect Iranian stamps, to get all these stamps in this pile. Now, here's an interesting one. These are some, what are these, Chinese stamps? Yeah, Chinese stamps with nice overprints. Again, not particularly valuable, I'm guessing, but we'll look those up at some point. But those caused me to say, that has some value here for me. More Iranian stamps, a lot more Iranian stamps, tons of Iranian stamps. Those will be nice in my collection. Here's some U.S. stamps, but they're not U.S. stamps. They're Philippines stamps, so U.S. overprinted Philippines. Let's see, what else do we have in here that's worth picking out. So I'm talking through my process. Hopefully that gives you a better sense of what I'm looking for to decide to buy the box. And yeah, here's another thing that I would have triggered off of. These are from German East Africa and Uganda. This one says on it, catalog value of $243. I don't believe that in this case. It's probably not worth that much, but this is something that causes me to go, that may be worth a little bit more. And this is an area I like to collect, so I'm happy with that. I know a lot of you collect these Swiss Pro Juveneta stamps. I think these are reasonably valuable. I don't collect them particularly, but they're nice in there. What else have we got? This one is an older Iranian stamp, and it has a price listed on it of $15. This is a set that was often counterfeited, so I will be dubious of that until I check it. Let's see what else. A whole bunch of stamps from Malawi. More Malaysian stamps, more Malawi stamps kind of mixed in. You can see that the dealer didn't want to go through these carefully because it's just a lot of low value things that are probably not worth the effort. Here's an old Trinidad revenue stamp. I don't collect that. It says on it catalog value of $110, net $8. Again, I would never buy that for myself. Here's war tax stamps. I think I've talked in the past about war tax stamps having some interest to me. I do not tend to collect things in this big format, although that's interesting to see so many together on one piece. Here's an old Trinidad surcharge stamp. Here's another war tax stamp, mint condition. That's beautiful to me. That adds value to my collection. I'm thrilled with that. Anyway, you can see that kind of thing here. Let's see, more Iranian stamps. Then we start to come into another style of stamps here. Here's some Polish stamps. I like Polish stamps. Those are interesting. Lots and lots and lots of interesting packets. Now, I'm not going to go through all these stamps to do the whole thing. What I'm going to do is pull out a few of the ones that I found notably interesting as I went through this and give you a sense of the stamps that I found in here, right? So here's the first one. Here is the stamps that caught my eye was Northwest Pacific Islands. I collect World War II, and these stamps in particular I needed for my World War II collection. So this had notable value to me. Now, when you look to the side of it, you'll see this one stamp from Barbados. I didn't pick this lot up for that stamp from Barbados, but I did see this stamp and looked it up in the catalog, and indeed, our first treasure. This stamp catalogs for $200 in this condition, and that's a real treasure. Now, I love that Barbados stamp. I will collect it. But I got this lot for these two, and I got that treasure along as a bonus. Here's some nice Bavarian overprints. I like these stamps. I need them for my collection, so that added value as a treasure. Here's another potential treasure, one that honestly gets counterfeited a lot, and I have to do some looking up there. These are Baden stamps. Very interesting, but possibly counterfeited. We'll have to look that up. Marshall Islands. I wanted for my collection one copy of one of these larger Kaiser's Yacht stamps. This is the very first one I have. This stamp is maybe $5 to $10 of value, but I didn't have any of them, so I'm thrilled to get that in this box. These stamps are quite interesting to me. These are French stamps with advertising labels on the top and bottom. There's one set there, one set here, and here's a third set. I have a friend who collects these French stamps with advertising labels, and yeah, these are probably reasonably valuable, but to him they're a joy in his collection. So this is just something I got as a bonus. I'll give that to that friend. Here's a nice German Reich stamp, 5 marks. Depending on which version of this that is, this is either a valuable treasure or a pretty ordinary $10 stamp. One I don't have, and so I'm thrilled to get it added to the collection. Here's an interesting Tuppenny Blue. This is not a very valuable Tuppenny Blue, but still, that's a nice stamp for our collection. Nice to find that in the lot. Now we look at these. These are 2 stamps here from Brazil. These are cataloging for $250 or $300, and originally somebody had indicated that these are $50 or $40 stamps. I can tell after some research that these are fake stamps. I'll get back to this in a minute, but let me set this down. Right up here in the corner, whoever had these wrote fake on them. So somebody has already determined these are fake and threw them into this pile because they didn't know how to sell them. So indeed, fake stamps. Here's a treasure. This is a Polish stamp, and this Polish stamp is a double overprint from Poland. I'll put up a picture of this one a little bit more. This is from the general government in Warsaw, and then the Polish government overprinted those stamps with a 25 surcharge. This surcharge is printed upside down. That's a real treasure. Now this stamp is in the catalog, not too expensive with the regular surcharge on it, but there's a note in the catalog that says we know these to exist with an overprint invert, and I haven't been able to find any details online about that overprint invert. Still, a real nice treasure, one that I will cherish in my collection. Here's another interesting stamp. This is a Hamburg stamp, again a set that was commonly counterfeited. This one says $125. I will have to check this to see if it's a counterfeit. Beautiful stamp, but counterfeit potential. Here's another treasure that was in this. These are 2 older Canadian stamps. These older Canadian stamps I don't have in my collection, and so this adds a stamp to a page that was otherwise blank in my collection. A really great find in here. Here's another interesting stamp. This is a Greek stamp that you can see has been cut wrong, It says that it's an error of a misperf, and it has a selling price listed of $75. Is this stamp worth $75? I don't know. I don't think so. But an interesting little potential thing to look up as an error. Here's a whole bunch of Turkish stamps. I think if you saw my last video, you'll know that I have been trying to build a Turkish collection. So that's why I pulled those out. Some Austrian stamps. Here's an interesting little piece here. This booklet is This card has a bunch of stamps on it from Canada down here, and then this one, which is a giant stamp from Venezuela. It's actually from the Guyana state of Venezuela in unused condition. I might even call it mint condition. But it is an unusual stamp, so that stood out to me, an old large format stamp. Typically when I see these, they turn out to be revenue stamps, but that's a state stamp and quite a nice thing. Then I saw these stamps up here, these Uruguayan stamps. Let me pull one out that's a little easier to see. That stamp right there is one of the earliest sets that came out of Uruguay, and these stamps are each stamp in this card, if genuine, would be worth someplace on the order of $20 to $100. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Behind here, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 stamps that are each worth on the order of $20 to $100. Okay, if they're real. Now these stamps were very commonly faked, and I did some research to look them up, and most of the stamps on this are not fake. They are actually the real deal stamp. So the value of this card is very high. You might ask, why is a card with so much value sitting here in this box? And the reason is that it took me a couple of hours to do this research. This one is fake. This one is real. And the effort to tell real from fake in a stamp like this takes a ton of time. I'm sure that the dealer got this lot and looked at it and went, ugh, I just don't want to do that research. And they decided to set it aside. And after setting it aside a couple of times, somebody slipped it into this booklet with other things in it and forgot that this was potentially a high value thing. Maybe looked at it and saw the Canada stamp as the brightest thing on the page, and then decided, I don't want to deal with this, and so they threw it in this pile, right? So that's probably why that's there. And that's the nature of these kinds of lots, that someone doesn't want to take the time. They think about it for a while, and they finally give up. Here's another interesting stamp. This one is French offices in Alexandria, and it says right up here, error. The S is left off, and down here in the overprint it says 1 milliem, 1 milliem, and it says the S was left off. And indeed, when you look in the catalog, you see that these overprints say milliems with an S, but this isn't actually an error. This is just a regular stamp with the singular form because this is the one overprint, so nothing special there. Here's an interesting thing. I knew from my collection I needed this 5 franc French Republic. That's sitting in there, reasonable value, not end of the world value, not particularly treasure worthy. This is another nice French stamp. This is a Type 1, which are unusual and rare. Again, $10-20 for a stamp like this, sitting in this card, waiting for me to find it in the treasure pile. Here's a bunch of U.S. stamps mint. These are all Shermack style vending perforations. These are nice, except the effort to figure out what the base stamp is in the Shermack, that's a lot of work. So this is why these are in this treasure box, is that's a lot of work to figure that out. Here's a nice official stamp, catalog price $10, nice stamp. I pulled out these stamps. There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 duck stamps. Duck stamps I know are reasonably nice. These are about $5 a piece on the market. So again, not too terribly interesting, but I have a friend who collects duck stamps, and so maybe these will go his way. The final thing I want to tell you is that the reason it's worth looking for treasure is that when you get these stamps, some of them will be counterfeits and some of them will be real. So those Uruguayan stamps I showed you were real, most of them. There was one counterfeit, and these are fake. And part of the process of finding treasure is being able to do the research to identify which stamps are fake. And so what I want to do is tell you how to do that research. The way to do this is to go online and type in the country name of the stamp you think it might be, and then type in forgery stamps. And that'll bring you a Google list of a whole bunch of places you could look to see what the characteristics of a real stamp is versus a fake stamp. So whenever you get a box like this and you think it might be treasure, look it up and see if there's a known forgery about it. These are both forged stamps. And you can tell whether you've got the treasure or the non-treasure version. I do want to point out that sometimes the forged version is also a treasure because some of the forgers are particularly well-known and valuable forgeries. I do find that having examples of the forgery is a good way for me to add to a reference collection for my own collection. I think it's interesting to have these two forgeries. These are different forgeries, so that's interesting, but they're not particularly valuable. And so that's my process. I go to the show, I identify a potential source of treasures. I look for things which the dealer is likely to have not spent enough time on because it's just not worth it to them. I go searching through it to get a sense of whether, if there are 0 treasures, this box would still be valuable to me. And so I don't buy a box that if there are no treasures in it, will not be valuable. This is valuable to me with no treasures. And then I look through it very carefully to look for these kind of treasures and pull them out and then do the research on them. So as a stamp collector, getting a sense of what you collect and what's important to you, having a method to go searching for things that have value to you, whether there's treasures in them or not, looking in places where it's very likely that a dealer would have set aside things that are dubiously good or bad, like this box or the other box, that might have treasures inside of them, and then spending the time around your dining room table looking up details of the stamps to understand whether you in fact have found a treasure or not. That's my process, and I hope that you find that process useful as you look through your own boxes of treasures at stores, at stamp shows. I hope you've enjoyed looking through these boxes with me. I've probably made it a lot harder on myself finding treasures in future stamp shows, because now you're all my competition. I shouldn't have let you in on the process, I guess. Anyway, it's really fine. There's plenty of treasures out there for everybody to find. Let me know if you use these approaches, and if you find some treasures, I'd really like to hear about them in the comments. I hope you're having a lovely time with your stamp collections. Happy collecting.